Welcome back to the Deep Dive. So today, we are cracking open a conversation that, on the surface, looks like your standard Hollywood press junket.
Right.
You've got Theo Von, the mullet-wearing, kind of Southern Gothic philosopher of the internet, sitting down with Kevin James, the sitcom legend, the king of Queens himself.
It's such a fascinating pairing right off the bat. I mean, you have two completely different generations of comedy, two very, very different energies, and supposedly they're there to promote Kevin's new movie, Solo Mio.
Exactly. That's the mission. Go sell the movie.
Yeah.
But what actually happens is, well, they end up peeling back the layers on the neurotic architecture of a comedian's mind. I went into this expecting, funny stories about Adam Sandler or maybe some Paul Blart anecdotes. And we get a little of that, sure.
But that's not the meat of it.
Not
really.
Not at all. What we really get is, it's like a masterclass on anxiety, the psychology of fear, and the surprisingly isolating reality of fame. It just turns into this therapy session where they dissect why they can't handle silence.
And why they self-sabotage and all the weird downsides of being successful. It really becomes a case study in human insecurity.
Totally.
It's almost comforting in a strange way to realize that no matter how many stadiums you sell out, you're still worrying about the awkward pause in a conversation.
Or what you're eating for lunch.
Oh,
absolutely. And we are going to unpack all of it. We've got everything from a gathering of 706 men named Kyle.
In a field in Texas, yeah.
To why Kevin James has these recurring dreams about waiting in line behind the Incredible Hulk, Lou Ferrigno.
And we'll get to the bottom of why sitting in the pocket, just being okay with doing nothing, is apparently the hardest thing in the world for a funny person to do.
So let's jump right in. I want to start with their origin stories because they actually touch on this quite a bit. Kevin James has been in the game for a long, long time. He mentions his first time on stage was July 26, 1989.
Which is a lifetime ago in comedy years. I mean, that's pre-internet, pre-social media.
Right. And he paints this. He paints this picture of his life before fame that is just so visceral. He wasn't just some kid dreaming of stardom. He was working a miserable job at a warehouse called Granger.
Yeah, he describes it so vividly. It's the middle of summer. It's brutal heat. He's sweating through his clothes. There are mice running around.
And the motivation wasn't necessarily, artistic expression at that point.
No. He says he was driving a forklift, just desperate to get out of the heat. The comedy club wasn't just a stage for him.
To use air conditioning.
Exactly. He just wanted to be in a room that was 70 degrees. It frames that desperation so well.
It really does. Now, contrast that with Theo Von, who started much later, around 2005?
Yeah, he was inspired by seeing a comedian live in college. But despite the age gap and the different start dates, what's so fascinating is the shared anxiety they both reveal. They both talk about this deep-seated inability to handle silence.
This is the part that really, really clicked for me. Kevin calls it the fear of the gap.
Yeah.
He talks about dating, right?
Yeah.
And he says if there is ever a silence on a date, he feels physically compelled to just fill it immediately.
It's such a classic anxious response. He admits he'll just start babbling nonsense. He'll even say the word because, just to buy himself a few seconds to think of something.
That is a terrifying way to live, just launching into a sentence with absolutely no destination, just hoping you find a point along the way.
It's pure survival mode. And Theo is exactly the same. He connects it to this, lack of confidence. He says that if he gives a woman room to think during a silence...
He's terrified she's going to use that time to realize she doesn't actually like him.
Exactly. It's like if the noise stops, the spell breaks. The noise, the jokes, the performance, it's all a shield.
And Kevin uses this great baseball analogy to explain it. He says when he was a kid, he was so anxious at the plate that he would just swing the bat 3 times before the pitcher even threw the ball.
Just to get it over with. He'd strike himself out just to end the tension. And that's what they're doing in conversation. They're swinging at nothing because the tension of sitting in the pocket, just waiting, being present, being comfortable with that stillness, it's unbearable.
Sitting in the pocket. They use that phrase a few times.
It's a great metaphor, isn't it? In football, the pocket is where the quarterback stands, calm amidst the chaos. In comedy, it's trusting that you don't need to fill every single second with noise.
And both of them admit that sitting in the pocket is the mark of maturity in comedy and in life, and it's something they are both, still struggling to learn.
You'd think decades into a career playing stadiums, Kevin James would be chill, but nope.
The pocket is still a scary place for him.
It is, and that maturity, that ability to sit in the pocket is what Kevin claims he's finally finding now, later in life. but it's been a battle.
Well, speaking of battles and long histories,
Mhm.
we have to talk about Kevin James and Joe Rogan. I had no idea they went back this far.
Yeah, we're talking, what, roughly 36 years they came up together in the comedy scene.
Kevin paints this hilarious picture of a young Joe Rogan. So Kevin was the jacket and bolo tie comic.
Very presentable, trying to be a showman.
Totally. Trying to be liked by everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And Rogan was the backwards hat guy, telling him to just loosen up.
It's an interesting dynamic because Rogan was the one pushing Kevin to be more authentic, to stop trying to serve the jokes on a platter.
Yeah.
But what I found really compelling was their discussion about the UFC and fighting. You know, they're both huge fans. Kevin's been training in jiu-jitsu for
It's in a
years.
glue belt.
Well,
Or at least he was training until, well, he mentioned the wet guy situation.
right. He said at age 60, having another grown man's sweat-soaked uniform pressed against your face kind of loses its appeal, which, you know, fair enough.
Very fair. But there's a deeper shift here in how they watch the fights. Kevin talks about how he used to go to the fights early back when the arena was still empty.
He loved hearing the raw sound of the impact, the violence of it,
But he says he just can't enjoy it the way he used to.
because he knows the fighters now. It's the curse of the insider.
He told this story about watching Rich Franklin, a fighter he knows personally, getting knocked out by Anderson Silva. And Kevin isn't just watching on TV, he's sitting right next to Rich Franklin's wife in the arena.
Oh, that changes everything.
It completely ruins the spectacle. When you see the human cost, when you see the family reacting, the entertainment just, it evaporates. Kevin said he saw the wife's face, and suddenly it wasn't a sport anymore.
It was just a tragedy. It reflects that shift from being a spectator to an insider where, empathy just overrides the adrenaline.
Sign of getting older, maybe.
Or just seeing behind the curtain. You can't dehumanize the gladiators when you've had dinner with them.
That really changes how you view the sport.
Yeah.
Now, shifting gears from fighting in the octagon to fighting with the self, let's talk about food. Because Kevin James is very, very open about his struggles with weight. And he uses a metaphor that I think is going to stick with me for a long time.
A shark.
The shark. He calls himself a shark when it comes to food.
Meaning he doesn't get full. He just keeps swimming and eating. He says if you change the type of food, like switch from savory to sweet or from dinner to snacks.
They can just keep going indefinitely.
I think we've all had those shark moments where you're just chasing the flavor, but he's trying to manage it. They get into a whole discussion about fasting.
Right. And not just for weight loss, but for autophagy.
Okay, so let's unpack that term for a second. Autophagy.
It literally means self-eating. It's this biological process where, in the absence of food, your cells start cleaning house. They recycle damaged parts, clear out toxins.
And Kevin says he does it for the mental clarity it brings. But the weirdest side effect he mentions isn't the clarity.
It's the dreams. Okay, this was hands down one of my favorite parts of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Kevin claims that when he fasts, his dreams become more profound, more directive. But then he describes his recurring anxiety dream. And it is just, it's comedy gold.
Please walk us through it.
So Kevin James is at the post office. He's waiting in line. And who is standing directly in front of him?
Who?
Lou Ferrigno, the Incredible Hulk.
Of course.
And they never reach the counter. It's just an endless wait behind Lou Ferrigno. He doesn't explain why it's Lou, but it's just this recurring image of being stuck.
It's such a specific manifestation of anxiety stagnation, being blocked by this larger-than-life force. And Theo has a matching anxiety dream that's just as telling, but maybe a little darker.
Oh, Theo's is wild. He dreams he's standing on the ledge of a building screaming, "I'm falling."
But he's not falling.
He's not even jumping. He's just standing there yelling about it. He calls himself a poser on the ledge.
That is classic imposter syndrome right there. Even in his nightmares, he feels like a fraud. He's not even doing the tragedy right. He's just performing it.
It's so fascinating how their brains serve up these specific scenarios.
Yeah.
But, okay, back to the physical reality. Kevin has a big challenge coming up. He mentions a new drama project with the musician Jelly Roll.
Who is a massive star right now.
Huge. And apparently, for this movie, they both agreed to get into prison shape for the roles.
Right, because the plot involves them being in prison. Makes sense.
But here's the irony. Jelly Roll has taken this super seriously, lost nearly 300 pounds. Kevin? Well, Kevin admits to Theo that he is currently up 7 pounds.
Oh, that is a tough spot to be in. Your co-star is transforming and you're going in the wrong direction.
Could you imagine that phone call? Hey, man, you look great. I think I found the weight you lost.
But Kevin has a plan. He says he's going back to the Culture diet. Mike Dolce is a famous trainer for UFC fighters, so he's bringing in the big guns to try and fix the damage.
Reverse the shark mentality.
Exactly.
I'm rooting for him. He seems determined. But let's talk about the movie he's actually promoting, Solo Mio. It's a love story set in Italy.
And this connects back to that sitting in the pocket idea we were talking about.
Yeah.
Kevin says this is the first movie where he didn't feel like he had to muscle the comedy.
Right. He didn't have to force the pratfalls or the loud jokes. He could just be real. He plays a guy named Matt Taylor.
Which, by the way, they go on a whole tangent about how generic that name is.
But it's a romance.
Yeah.
And it leads to this really funny comparison between Kevin's life and Theo's. So Kevin has been married for over 21 years. Theo is Theo.
The contrast is pretty stark. Kevin talks about marriage as this realization that you just don't want to be away from the person. It's not always fireworks, but it's a deep need for their presence.
Theo, on the other hand, just gives us this tour of his neuroses through his dating disasters.
Oh my gosh, these reasons for breaking up, you have to hear them to believe them.
So Theo admits he broke up with a girl because her head was too small.
Too small.
He compared it to a softball, or, and I quote, a baseball with inflammation. He said he couldn't handle it. The physics of it just bothered him.
Wow, that is highly specific.
And it gets worse. He dated another girl, but he had to end it because she used the phrase, rattle your cage. Hey, just calling to rattle your cage.
And that was a deal breaker.
Immediate deal breaker. He said he wanted to rattle his own head off a balcony. And then there was the burrito girl.
Do I want to know?
Apparently, this girl needed to be tightly rolled up in a blanket like a burrito or a lubia, which is Theo's word for it, just to fall asleep.
Yeah.
And he just couldn't handle the logistics.
You know, what's so interesting here is that while it's hilarious, it really highlights what we were saying earlier about fear. Theo is looking for any reason to eject. He's finding these tiny physical flaws or verbal tics and turning them into these insurmountable obstacles so he doesn't have to actually be vulnerable.
It's self-killing the relationship before it can fail on its own terms.
Exactly. Whereas Kevin, who admits he used to circle a girl in high school without speaking to her because he needed confirmation she liked him first, eventually got over that hurdle. He found safety. Theo is still circling.
It really humanizes them both.
Yeah.
But the conversation wasn't all, deep psychology. There were some absolutely random fact nuggets that I need to share just because they blew my mind.
The trivia portion of the deep dive. Let's hear it.
First off, horseradish. They have this whole epiphany about horseradish versus wasabi.
Yes.
They discovered that the wasabi you get at most places, the green paste with your sushi, is just dyed horseradish.
Which is true. Real wasabi is incredibly expensive and hard to cultivate. Most people have never had it.
But Kevin drops some botanical knowledge. He notes that horseradish is a perennial plant of the Brassicaceae family.
I was surprised he had that locked and loaded. The King of Queens knows his root vegetables.
Apparently so.
Yeah.
Okay, but then they get to the gathering of the Kyles.
Yes.
Did you see this news item? 706 men named Kyle gathered in the city of Kyle, Texas.
To break a world record.
Right, for the largest gathering of people with the same first name. It sounds impressive, right?
It does until you hear the record they were trying to beat.
They failed. The record is held by a town in Bosnia where, in 2017, they gathered 2,325 people named Ivan.
The Kyles have a long way to go. They're not even halfway there.
But you have to ask, what drives 700 people to travel to a field in Texas just because of their name?
It's that human need for connection. Even if the connection is completely arbitrary, like my parents named me Kyle, people want to belong to a tribe. We'll take any excuse to gather and feel part of something bigger.
We just want to find our fellow Kyles. Speaking of connection, or the total lack of it, one last nugget. They were talking about blindness, because there's a blind character in Kevin's movie.
Oh, okay.
And Theo shares this observation he heard from a blind woman. She said that snakes are the absolute worst animal for a blind person to pet.
Why is that?
Because they give no energy back.
Oh, that's terrifying if you think about it. You're touching something cold and moving, but there's no feedback, no nuzzle, no sound.
Just a cold tube of muscle. No thank you.
It's a very Theo Vaughn observation. Oddly specific, but deeply profound.
So bringing this all together, we start with a movie promo, but we end up with this really rich portrait of two men.
Right. You have Kevin James, the global superstar, and Theo Vaughn, the viral sensation.
Yeah.
But strip away the accolades, the money, the movies, and what do you have?
Two guys grappling with the same stuff we all grapple with. Insecurity.
Insecurity. How to look someone in the eye. How to fill the silence without panicking. How to control your impulses around food.
it's kind of comforting to know that even the guy who played Paul Blart worries that if he stops talking, people will realize he's unlovable.
It proves that success doesn't cure neurosis. It just gives you a bigger platform to talk about it.
And maybe better access to trainers like Mike Dolce to fix the shark eating habits.
That certainly helps.
Before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final thought from Kevin James that really stuck with me. He was talking about his diet, but I think it applies to everything. He said he fails because he lets perfect be the enemy of good.
It's the flat tire mentality.
Exactly. He says if he eats one bad meal, he thinks, well, I blew it, and then he eats like crazy for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
He asks, if you got a flat tire on your car, would you get out and slash the other 3 tires?
Of course not. You'd fix the flat and keep driving.
But we do this to ourselves all the time, don't we? One bad interaction, one mistake, and we just slash the other 3 tires. So, listener, that's the question for you today. Where in your life are you slashing the other 3 tires just because you got one flat?
Don't slash the tires, just fix the flat.
Simple advice, but hard to follow. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll catch you next time.
See you then.